All right, thank you everybody. I know that you've already seen this demo on the brand new Sensational Workstation. We also know in those convention centers it can kind of get a little bit noisy. So thank you for just giving us a little extra time and allowing us to go over this one more time. The first thing that we're going to talk about is accuracy. The second thing we're going to talk about is our neck, back, shoulders, and hands. Because every single problem that we have in sewing and quilting has to do with accuracy or the neck, back, shoulders, and hands. So the first thing that we're going to touch on is accuracy. So for those of you at home that don't know about Martelli or don't have any Martelli tools, this is what you do. You use an acrylic ruler that's see-through because you've been told so many years, make sure you measure twice and cut once, because if you measure twice and cut once, you're always going to be accurate. And then you measure twice and cut once and you're never accurate. Here's the reason why. This video is to help you understand why things are the way they are. So let's say for the sake of arguments that you're going to do a block quilt, right? You put that strip ruler down that you can see through, you measure cut, you move the ruler, you measure cut, you move the ruler, you measure cut, you move the ruler, then you measure cut, and then you're done with your block. So my very first question to you is, when you take that first measurement, once you take a measurement, you measure cut, when you move that ruler, the second you move that ruler, is that a constant or a variable? If you said variable, you are absolutely right. So my question to you is, how can something that is a variable, that is a flawed system from the very beginning, how can that ever be accurate? It can't. And then if you're going to do a big king-size quilt, let's say you're doing a 4-inch block, okay? Let's say you're doing a king-size quilt. Let's be super generous to you, and let's say you do 5 layers at a time. You measure cut, move your ruler, you do 5 layers at a time. When you're done, you take these 5 layers and you put them right here. And what I'm about to tell you right now is very critical. If you understand what I'm about to teach you right now, it changes everything that you ever thought that you knew about quilting, okay? So you're doing a block quilt, you do 5 layers at a time. You set those 5 layers and you put them right here. Then you go get 5 more layers of fabric and you do the same thing. This is my question to you. Are these 5 layers ever identical to these 5 layers? The answer is no. Even if it's off by less than 1/8 of an inch, it's still off. Now here's my question. If you're doing a king-size quilt, how many sets of 5 layers do you have? And how many sets are ever 100% accurate? Every single one of them are a little bit different. So I'm going to show you what we do at Martelli, and if you understand this, this is a game changer, okay? So everything that Martelli does, every single template, every single ruler, every single product we make is made on a laser machine or a CNC machine. So my question to you is, why do people use laser machines to cut things? Why do people use laser machines to cut anything? The reason why people use laser machines is because they are pinpoint precise. We also know if you're quilting, your seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch. So everything that we do has the seam allowance already built in. So this is a 3.5-inch block. So when I'm done cutting this and I sew it together, that means it's going to finish a 3-inch block, and it's going to be, you have your seam allowance already built in. So now I'm going to take my template. Now, before I go any further, once I show you this, I'm going to show you why nobody else in the world does it. So now I have my block, okay? I'm going to cut this right here, cut, and then I'm going to cut this right here, and then I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to cut this, okay? Now, I want everybody to see this. That is a perfect 3.5. So my question to you is this a constant or is this a variable? This never changes. Well, then you're going to say, well, Dave, how come everybody in the world doesn't do what you do? How come everybody in the world that's in quilting, how come they don't go buy a laser machine and make templates so they're a constant and they never change? Here's the reason why. Do you see this right here? When they put the templates down or when they put their rulers down, everything slides all over the place. We have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars of research and development to get this brown no slip material. Once you put it down, it locks to your fabric. I can take my ruler, I can take any template. Once I put down, I can move my whole table, but that mat will never move because it locks to whatever position it's in. So now that we know that we have a constant and everything we do is 100% accurate. So here's my question to you. Does it matter if you do 1 layer, 5 layers, or 10 layers? Does it matter if you do 1 set, 5 sets, or 10 sets? So now imagine if you do a king-size quilt and you're doing a 3-inch block, because this is a constant and because it never moves and it never changes, now your king-size quilt that's done with 3-inch block is going to be done with pinpoint precision because the tools are doing all the work for us. So now let's cover bias. And I know many of you out there don't do bias, but I'm going to show you how easy bias is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our material on our cutting mat, putting our points on our 60 or our 45. Now, let's all agree, every single thing that we do in quilting is nothing but cutting straight lines. And because you have rulers that slide all over the place, you put the ruler down, then you have to maneuver your body to your ruler. I'm going to show you how we do it. So super simple. We're going to position our fabric where it's square on the mat, and we're going to line them up with the 45-degree lines. I'm going to set this down right here. Now, typically what you do after home is you have to square your body up to your tools. Watch how easy this is. Once I lay my ruler down, I can put this in a position that's comfortable for me because our equipment, our templates and our rulers always grab the fabric. Once it grabs the fabric, it doesn't ever let it go. So now, because all we're doing is cutting straight lines, I square my tools up to myself. I square that point up right there. Let's say I want a 1 5/8 on the bias. I cut that right there. Now, when you lift your rulers up at home and you have an acrylic ruler, what happens to your fabric underneath? It moves, because when you have a solid piece of acrylic, it creates a vacuum. So when you lift that ruler up, it shifts the fabric underneath. So you have to be very careful. We don't do anything by accident. Everything we do is made out of ABS. That ABS is super flexible. So when I lift up my ruler, watch my fabric underneath. I simply pinch right here and I slowly lift right there. Notice you can barely even tell that's cut. That's because we have ABS and that's flexible. Now watch this. I take this out. There's my 1 5/8 on the bias. I didn't have to move. I didn't have to readjust my body. Everything was done by moving my ruler and squaring up, giving me a point from point A to point B, which is a straight line. Every single time we do it, we cut straight lines. Okay. Second thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our strip ruler. Now, I love this. This is funny. I ask this to so many people when I'm at shows, right? I'm like, you ever cut strips? And they're like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, have you ever bought a strip ruler? And they're like, yeah, of course. I'm like, do you still use it? And they're like, nope. They buy it, they use it once, and then they throw it away or they give it away and they don't have any idea why. Or they put it up and they never use it again. Okay, the distance between these 2 points right here, this line and this line, that is called a tolerance, okay? So when you buy a strip ruler from somebody, whoever they are, they're going to do you a big favor and they're going to give you a big tolerance in there so you can put your blade in there. The problem with having that big gap between the 2 lines is if your blade does this, while you're doing this, what does it do to your accuracy, right? It kills it. So I'm going to show you something that we do at Martelli's that makes it really, really easy. So I'm going to set my ruler down just like this. This is my 1/2-inch strip ruler. I'm going to line it up with the lines, and now I'm going to cut. You're going to notice my templates and my rulers grab so much, I don't even have to hold my rulers. So right here, you can see I have 2 layers of fabric. I'm going to do a 1-inch strip, and then I'm going to do a 1-inch block with the same ruler, and all I'm going to do is cut straight lines. Okay, you ready? So I'm going to take this right here, I'm going to square it up, and then I'm going to put my rotary cutter there. I'm going to cut. I'm going to move it down 2 inches because this is a 1/2-inch strip ruler. Put it down right there and cut. Cut. Notice I'm not even holding my rulers, ladies and gentlemen. All I'm doing is position my body in the proper cutting position and just move down a little bit at a time, okay? So now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to lift my ruler up. So I'm going to pinch right here and then I'm going to lift. Notice you can't even see any cut lines right there. You can't even tell the fabric's cut. So you ready? I'm just going to show you one and then I'm going to do my blocks, okay? Actually, I'll show you 2. So there's my 1-inch strip. Absolutely perfect, as you can see. Here's my another 1-inch strip. As you can see, 100% perfect. Just kind of look down here, just kind of give you a bird's eye view. So there's my perfect 1-inch strip. So now I'm going to move this. I have a lot more 1-inch strips, but now I'm going to do my blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to set my ruler down on top of it just like so. Boom. Now, remember, everything we do is straight lines. Well, I'm not going to contort my body this way. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to move it. Watch the fabric. See how the fabric stays with my ruler? Once again, talking about working and cutting on straight lines. So let's go right here where I can find it. Right here is perfect. So we're going to go right there and right there. So now that I have my rule lined up, I'm going to do the same exact thing because I've already cut my strips. So now I just pick my ruler up. I turn the ruler the opposite direction. Now we're going to do our blocks. So I'm going to take it and then I'm going to move my salvage right here. This is all salvage. We're going to take that and then I'm going to put it right here and we're going to cut. Again, I won't even hold my ruler. I'll let my ruler do all the work. Notice the only thing I'm doing is cutting, right? So we'll go down 2 more. Go down right here, and we're going to go down the last one. Okay? Now, I'm going to lift my ruler up and watch this. Pinch right here, slowly lift right here, and we're going to move this out of the way. Now, can you even tell that fabric's cut? The answer is absolutely not. Now watch this. Here's my salvage. Okay, you ready for this? There's my strips. So we're going to move my salvage. I'm going to move my salvage right here, my 1-inch strips, my salvage. I'm going to move my salvage right here. Now check this out. If you look right here, it looks like a block. You can't even tell that's fabric's cut. Now you ready for this? There's no such thing as magic fabric. You ready? I'm going to take the middle block right here, and I'm going to put it in my mat, and guess what? 100% accurate right there. Every time we do something, yeah, let's get a close-up of that. Let me move this out of the way, get a close-up of that. Every time we cut something, it's done with pinpoint precision. Now, the reason why this is important is because if accuracy is important to you, the tools do all the work for you, and you're used to using all the see-through. Now, remember at the very beginning part of the video, we said, make sure you measure twice and cut once, because if you measure twice and cut once, you're going to be accurate. The problem is, and I'm going to sum it up in a nutshell. I'm going to sum it up in a nutshell for you. Seeing through your ruler is what causes the inaccuracies, because once you measure, you have to move the ruler to do your next cut. That is not the case. Everything that we do is shape and size specific, okay? So let me sum that up for you. Everything that Martelli does is shape and size specific with the seam allowance built in, which makes it a constant. There is no more measuring. So everything we do here, you can do a king size quilt, be 100% accurate, and never take a single measurement. Think about that statement for a second, how huge that is. Right now you work and you work and you work and you measure and you cut, and your quilts are never accurate and you don't know why. That's why. So, and Martelli's is the only ones in the world that can do that because of our no-slip material. Okay, now next thing that we're going to talk about is our fussy cuts, right? I love when people try to fussy cut. This is something that I absolutely love. So they'll do one of two things. They'll use that see-through method, the see-through ruler method, or they'll take a template. Let's say I want to cut one of these guys off. They'll sneak up on their fabric and they'll go, and they'll throw their template down as quick as they can, and then they go like this. So number one, and I'm being facetious here, but number one, you're killing your neck, back, and shoulders by trying to bend over and see it. And secondly, you're guessing. So what we do is, remember I said shape and size specific? Martelli makes every shape and size template conceivable to man, right? We also make the windows. On the back of our windows, notice we do not have that no-slip material. We do that on purpose. We can take our window down and we can move it and slide it around on the fabric very easily. In this case, let's go to this white one because you'll be able to see that one best on the camera. So I'm going to take my block, I'm going to take my window, and I'm going to take my corresponding block. So in this case, I need a 3.5, so I grab my 3.5 inch block. I'm going to use my measurements right here. They're like crosshairs of a gun, right, in a scope. It allows you to make the picture dead center, and then when you find exactly what you want, you take the block, you inset the block into the picture frame, and then you remove this, the picture. And then it locks to the fabric. So now there's no more guessing. So now I have it right where I want it. I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to move it right here. Take this right here. Now notice I'm doing, once again, notice everything I'm doing is right in front of me. So there's no more guesswork, right? So I'm going to move that fabric right there, and I'm going to cut this. Now watch this. Everything is done with pinpoint precision because now I have a picture frame. So even your fussy cuts are 100% accurate. Now, the last thing that I am going to show you really quickly is I'm going to grab a block, 6.5, and we're going to grab a 5.5. I'm going to show you the circles because I want everybody to know how easy the circles are. And then once I do these circles, I'm going to show you what everybody's been anticipating, and that is our workstation. So we are going to set this down just like so. Let's grab another piece of this right here. I'm going to show you how to cut a perfect circle. Now, a lot of you that's ever tried to cut a circle before, you tear up your mat, you tear up your blade, and your circles are never circular, they're oval, right? So we're going to take this block down. Now, in order to get a perfect circle, you must have a perfect square. Remember, all of our templates are done on a laser machine. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to cut this just like this. I'm going to move this, making sure I'm always cutting a straight line in front of me, right? That's all quilting is cutting straight lines. Okay, we're going to take this, and we're going to set this down. Now that I know I have a 6.5 inch block, right, and I know that this is 100% accurate, I take my square that I just cut, I'm going to fold it in 4s, right? And it doesn't even have to be perfect, and I'm going to share with you why in a second. Now, I'm talking about when you fold it now. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once I have it folded, I'm going to take it point to point and edge to edge. And I'm going to set that down here just like this. And as long as the circle that you are cutting is smaller than the square, you're good. So in this case, I have a 6.5 inch block and I have a 5.5 inch square. Now, do you remember what we talked about? Everything we do is a straight line. The reason why I'm reiterating that over and over and over, because I'm going to show you how to cut a perfect circle by cutting a straight line. So now I'm going to put my template. I want everybody to watch my finger and watch my blade. So now as I put this down, watch my blade. I'm actually keeping my blade perfectly straight, turning my template. Now watch. Now my circles are 100% accurate, It doesn't matter if I'm doing, here, let's put it against my shirt right there so you can see. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing that or if I'm doing reverse applique. Look. So there's my circle, and there's my reverse applique. So everything is done perfectly, and the tools are doing it all. All right, now, last but not least, this is what everybody's been anticipating. We are going to move this stuff right here. I'm going to throw this fabric away, and then we are going to talk about our workstation. So let's go like this and get this clean. Now, the first thing you have to know about our workstation is made out of 3/4 inch HDPE. HDPE stands for high density polyethylene, okay? That means it's super lightweight and it's indestructible. Now, why is that important? Because the standard doorway in the interior of a house is 32 inches. So if my table is 28 by 55 and it's plastic and it's super lightweight, watch this. I can take this and I can roll it around anywhere in my house and it rolls easily. The other thing I'm going to tell you is that it has rubber wheels, not plastic. So when you roll it from room to room, it never destroys your floor. The other thing that we're going to talk about is the cutting mat, right? The cutting mat, we have actually, it's machined out. So when your cutting mat goes in, it's a perfectly flat work area. So HDPE goes through doors, flat area. Now we're going to talk about the most important parts of the table and why we have them. Okay, we have on the new brand new Sensational Workstation, we have 4 commands. Our old one had 3 commands. So let me talk about how important this is. Each side and each leg goes up and down independently of one another. This goes up and down by itself. This goes up and down by itself. And both sides go up and down together. So I'm going to show you the features and then I'm going to tell you why this is important. So notice this side going up, okay? This side staying down. Now we're going to go to the other side. I'm going to lift the other side up. Notice this side is going up and this side is staying stationary, okay? Now that I have it even, I'm going to take both of this and I'm going to bring them down. Both sides at the same time. I'm going to bring it down, okay? And now I'm going to bring both sides up. Okay, now why is this important? Let's say for the sake of argument, we are squaring up a monster quilt, right? And those are heavy. So let's say I'm doing a king size quilt. Actually, this side went down. I'm going to stand on the end of my cutting mat. I'm going to take my quilt and I'm going to do an accordion fold. Now, I'm not left-handed, but just for this demonstration, I want to show you right here. So I'm going to get this on the perfect tilt for me. I'm going to take my quilt and I'm going to do an accordion fold. I fold it back and forth and I lay my quilt right here the whole length of the table. So now the whole length of my table is supporting my quilt, right? And then I'm going to use the tail that's over here. Let me raise this side up. Okay. Now that I have the perfect tilt for me, I'm going to raise and lower both sides at the same time. So you can see that perfect angle. So now we're going to take it and we're going to raise both sides at the same time. The reason why that's important, you notice I can almost reach all the way across my entire mat without bending my neck, back, or shoulders. So typically what you do is you dive into your fabric, right? Because you use a ruler that slides all over the place. So you put the ruler right here in the middle of your belly. You get on top of your ruler with your rotary cutter. You can't see what you're doing, so you turn the blade a little bit. You walk your hand up the ruler, or you do this. And the further you go, the more you want to veer off. The reason, first of all, look at my posture right here. You wonder why your neck, back, and shoulders are killing you? Is look at this posture. And then to top it all off, the further you go, your shoulder's on the outside of your body, so you veer off. That's why left-handed people veer off to the left, and right-handed people veer off to the right. And so in 1 minute, I'm going to actually show you the next feature, which is the front to back, and show you why this is so important. But anyways, you take your quilt, you do an accordion fold, you cut, you turn your quilt, you rotate it, you do an accordion fold, you do the same thing, you cut, and everything is done off the side of your hip, and that's the proper way to sew, right? Or proper way to cut is on the side of your hip. Now, we're going to take this. I'm going to square this table back up. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you the sewing aspect. So now, because this is what we traditionally get. A lot of times when somebody says, you know what, there's not one person in the world that watches this demonstration that doesn't want the workstation. The only objection I ever get is, I absolutely love that, I just don't have the room for it, right? So what I'm showing you now is a solution to that problem. Because right now you have a sewing table or sewing chair or sewing desk. You have a cutting table. You have a cutting desk, however it is. And then you have a pressing board. This is a one-stop shop. The reason why I don't call it a cutting table is because it's so much more than a cutting table. It's a workstation. So now, once I have my cutting done for my quilt, I'm going to show you. And listen, this is really cool because not a lot of people know this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to tilt it the other way, okay? And I'm going to put my sewing machine right here. Now, I'm going to ask you a really, really dumb question, and I get it all the time. And then once I ask people that and I give them the answer, like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. In relation to your sewing machine, where do you sit when you sew, right? The major answer that I get from every single person out there is I sit right in front of the sewing machine. It's absolutely the worst place in the world that you can sit. So I'm going to show you how you can sew ergonomically too. So the first thing I want you to do is kind of do a demonstration for me, if you will, okay? I'm going to turn sideways here. Take your hand and put your hand flat, right? I want you to put your hand right here in front of the bridge of your nose, and I want you to move it out about 10 inches, okay? Now I want you to look at the top of your hand. Well, Dave, I can't see the top of my hand. Oh, that's correct. Now take your hand and tilt it towards your face. Now I can see my entire hand. So my demonstration behind that is when you're sewing on a flat surface and you're sewing right in front of, well, first of all, when you're sewing in front of your sewing machine, that's why you can't see, because when your sewing machine is flat, the actual sewing machine itself, it blinds your line of vision. You can't see. It hinders your vision, right? So when you take the sewing machine, the first thing you're going to notice when you tilt it is I can see again. Now, the other thing I want to show you, I'm going to turn this way. When my sewing machine is flat, the lower it is, the more I have to bend my neck, back, and shoulders. Watch. Right here, and now I'm going to lower it. So the lower it is, the worse it gets. Watch. Because now I have to look down like this. Picture yourself at home in front of your sewing machine doing this right here. And just like cutting, you have to dive into that fabric. Now, I want you to watch. I'm going to take my hand right here that I'm looking down, and I'm going to tilt it. Watch my neck as I tilt my hand. So as I tilt my sewing machine, it takes my neck, back, and shoulders and it puts it in the proper position. So now let's get back to this right here. I'm going to grab this chair and I'm going to show you something. So here's the needle, okay? Here's your sewing machine. Here's your throat, here's your needle, and here's all your fancy schmancy buttons, right? So when my table is flat, remember, we have to dive into our fabric and we have to take our neck and we have to look down. The more I take my table and the more I tilt it like this, the more I can see. It increases the visibility. But here's the other thing. Do you remember I said, where do you sit in relation to your sewing machine, right? Now that your sewing machine is tilted, if you're right-handed, take your right shoulder and line it up with your needle. Think about this. And then I'm going to tell you why everybody sits in front of their sewing machine. Your sewing machine has feed dogs. It advances the fabric for you. You don't have to advance the fabric, the feed dogs do. The only thing that you need to do is be able to see your foot or your guide. When you're in front of your sewing machine and your sewing machine's flat, that sewing machine gets in front of your way, so you have to look down further, so you're looking in front of the machine like this. When you take that machine and you tilt it and you scoot over and you line your right shoulder up, that machine is completely out of my way. It's not in my way at all anymore. So now here's my needle right here. I have nothing in my line of sight right here, and I can see better than I've ever been able to see before. So now with the tilt feature, I can sew all day long with perfect posture. So I'm going to kind of give you a bird's eye view. This is what I do right here. I want you to look at my posture. This is what I do right here. Okay? Let me get the remote. One more time, I'm going to show you what I do. This is what I do. I used to do a demonstration on something called the quick bind. It was a 24 by 24 inch placemat. I would bind it and rip it off, bind it and rip it off, bind it and rip it off. I remember my neck and shoulders would kill me at the end of a day from 9 to 5 or whenever the trade show was. That's when we first came up with the ergonomic machine tilt. But what an incredible product. That's another product in and of its own. But this will do the same exact thing. It takes your table and it tilts it, right? So this is what I do. Look at my posture. Okay? And then this is what you do. So you're going to take this right here. Your sewing machine is flat. And then I'm going to tell you in a second why everybody sits in front of their sewing machine. So this is what you do. You center the sewing machine up, your needle's right here, and then now your machine right here, your arm is blocking your vision. You can't see. The reason why everybody sits in front of their sewing machine is because the person that taught you how to sew, the person that actually taught you how to sew, in most cases, they were taught on a treadle machine. A treadle machine has a fixed pedal and it's on the inside of the cabinet. You can't move it, right? So when your sewing machine is right here in the middle and it's flat and my needle's right here, I want you to watch my posture now and watch my hand. So I'm reaching across my body to where my needle is and I'm bending my neck a lot more. Ready? And the sewing machine's in my way. So now, if you do it like I do it, it's like this, because it's tilted. So you take your hand, and we're going to show you that in a second in the cutting. Okay, so that part of the workstation shows you your cutting, you're squaring up your quilts, and you're and also that also shows you the sewing aspect. So the last thing that I'm going to show you is the reaching, and then we're going to get right into the pricing. The very last thing that we're going to show you is the front to back. This is the brand new home run feature of the entire brand new Sensational Workstation is our front to back tilt. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt this up, and I'm going to do it a couple times because I want to show you the difference. Now remember we talked about a one-stop shop. This is the only workstation in the world that you can sew ergonomically sitting or standing. This is the only workstation in the world that you can cutting ergonomically sitting or standing. This is the only workstation in the world that you can do pressing, ergonomically, sewing, or standing. It does it all. So you need one table that will do everything. Now, do you remember we talked about at the very beginning how you got a see-through ruler, you put it down, you dive into your fabric like this, and then you cut, and you always veer off when you get to the end? Remember we talked about that? Now, I'm going to show you, now it's my backside, but I want you to be able to see this. Now, once I have this perfectly where I want it, I'm going to raise and lower both sides. I'm going to reach all the way across my mat without bending it over at all. Remember the vision that I gave you earlier. You put the see-through ruler down, you dive into the fabric, your posture's horrible, and then when you get to the end, you veer off, okay? So we're going to put this in a place. James, I want to get this right here where everybody can see this. Can everybody see this right here? Is it better if I do that or if I do that?
Actually, I do get both corners.
Okay, so I'm not left-handed, but I want to use the remote with my right. Notice I'm reaching from one side of my mat all the way to the other side of my mat, and my posture is perfectly straight. Can everybody see this? Now, everybody always says, well, Dave, how come my neck, back, and my shoulders always kill me? I'm about to show you right now. So I can reach all the way across my mat. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my surface and I'm going to put it flat. Now, before I do that, remember when we talked about diving over and veering off? When you dive into the fabric, do you realize you have to move? You have to reach over 24 inches every single time you cut a strip, or every time you cut something of significance. You have to reach over 2 feet further. Okay, watch. Notice I'm standing perfectly straight. The only thing that I'm going to do, I'm not even going to move my hand off the table. All I'm going to do is flatten the table. Watch my finger right here when I'm done. So I started on 24. And when it's flat, you're going to see that I'm able to move from one side of my mat all the way to the other side of my mat without ever moving my finger off this table, simply by lowering it, right? So we are right there. So 24 minus 2, right? That's 22 inches, and my table wasn't even, that's 2 feet almost, ladies and gentlemen. That's like 2 inches short of 2 feet. So no wonder why you're doing this over and over, and you're like, oh, and you're like this with the sewing. So this will allow you, think about this. You can go from one side of your mat all the way to the other side of the mat. Now, I'm going to kind of give you a bird's eye view, right? Just a sample, demo piece. So this is what you do. This is what I do. Okay? So I just slightly move my body down. Let me do it at a front angle. So this is what I do, just slightly. And you saw when I was using the strip ruler, and this is what you do. You wonder why you're passionate about sewing, you're passionate about quilting. You do hours and hours and hours of sewing and cutting, and you do it traditionally the same way everybody's done it for years and years. The reason why we invent these problems is to make sewing and cutting easier on you. We know that, things that we do with our body can be rough, and rotary cutting and sewing is no different. So we've made products that make the tools work for you, and you don't have to work for those tools. Imagine being able to sew all day, every day with no aches and pains. Imagine being able to cut all day long with zero aches and zero pains, right? So now that we have all this, we're going to go over the price, and we are going to go over everything that you get. So there's a lot that comes with this, so I'm going to set this all on the table. Give me 1 second. We're going to set all these products on the table because I want you to see everything that you're going to get. You talking about the deals? The reason why we go to these trade shows is to give deals. Anybody that's been with me for any length of time knows that these trade shows is where you get the deals, and this is no different. Now, again, I want to thank everybody for just giving us a few moments of your time. As I discussed earlier before, the show can be really, really noisy sometimes, and you can't really concentrate when there's so many other vendors out there. So, one more thing, okay? All right, you ready for this? The retail price on this table by itself, just by itself, with no products, is $4,600. If you look at the products on this table, you're right at about $1,000 or more. I haven't actually done the math myself, but guarantee you're at $1,000 or more, probably more. this is what we're going to do at the show. I'm going to give you 56 templates, your squares, your triangles, your rectangles, plus all the fussy cuts. You're going to get your circles. You're going to get your 2 rulers, which is your binding ruler, and you're going to get your 1/2-inch strip ruler. You're going to get your uni rack, and you're going to get 3 rotary cutters. You're going to get the 45, you're going to get the 60, and you're going to get the 28. Plus, you're going to get an extra pack of blades with all of your cutters, except for the 28 millimeter. Now, just by itself, this is almost $7,000 in price. It's like $69.95 or something like that. We're going to do it all for $36.99, and it's $500 to ship, and we're going to do the shipping for $250 only at this show. So thank you so much for taking the time to just sit back and listen to what we have to teach you when it's a little bit more quiet so you can digest the information. And please make sure you go back to your sales rep at the show and let them know that you watched this video and you want to take advantage of that special price and that special bundle that includes everything. Again, thank you so much, and we appreciate your business, and we're looking forward to you starting to use the Martelli brand new Sensational Workstation.